This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering. We keep coming out with these bonus episodes, and here is yet again another one. This is the bonus episode, Faculty Roundtable for the Biomedical Engineering Department. On this episode, we give two fantastic faculty in the Biomedical Engineering Department their chance to talk about their backgrounds, their research, the curriculum, the discipline of biomedical engineering overall. Dr. Eun Ji Chung and Dr. Maral Mousavi. Fantastic conversation. Very, very, very cool people. And what's really interesting in the beginning of this conversation is they are both involved in creating brand new proposals in research focused on COVID-19 responses, which was exciting. And so we kind of kick things off talking exactly about what's going on in the world today and exactly how USC and the Viterbi School and researchers are kind of pivoting as quickly as possible to focus on the rapid response needed to our current pandemic situation. This is the middle of the week. No, is it the middle? Gosh, I don't even know what day it is anymore. It's Thursday. It's past middle of the week. We recorded this today, April 16th. We're about halfway through the month of April, which means admitted students, we're about halfway through the opportunity you have to make your decision. So if you have still yet to make that decision, make sure you attend one of our keynote sessions. We have two more left next week, or on Tuesdays. We have 2 more Tuesdays left. You can sign up for a keynote at viterbiadmission.usc.edu. Go to your admission portal at admission.usc.edu/status. If you got any questions or anything else you want to talk about, give us a call. We're at 213-600-9919. Again, that's 213-600-9919. And other than that, we're going to keep doing these episodes so you can connect with faculty. If you want to watch the video, they are available on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out, youtube.usc.edu/viterbiadmission. So I'll get out of the way, and I will let you enjoy biomedical engineering with Dr. Chung and Dr. Mousavi. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. As we wait a couple minutes here, everyone's coming in from the waiting room. So I want to make sure everybody is in. Once you're in, I'm going to be hitting this mute all button. If you haven't already muted yourself, please feel free to do so. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Faculty Roundtable for the Biomedical Engineering Department at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission, and I'll be moderating the conversation today. And joining us, we have two faculty members from the department, which I'll let them introduce themselves, but Dr. Eun Ji Chung and Dr. Maral Mousavi. Dr. Chung, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, hi everybody. Nice to meet you virtually. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. I've been at USC for almost 4 years, and I currently teach nanomedicine and drug delivery at the undergrad and grad level. I guess overall my research is related to that. We develop nanoparticles that can deliver drugs and diagnostics to various diseases. And currently we're getting a proposal together for the COVID-19 effort. So it's been interesting to learn about it.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Dr. Mousavi.
Hi everyone, and nice meeting you all. I'm also an assistant professor at the Biomedical Engineering Department. I'm actually quite new. I joined this year. So my area of research is actually developing diagnostic testing for basically accessible and affordable medical testing for looking at a variety of diseases and biomarkers. We're actually also working on basically accessible diagnostic platform for COVID-19. And in general, I would say we're looking at a variety of different tools for basically getting more information, for example, wearable devices or like basically different platforms for getting more information from patients. I teach a course on biomedical measurements and instrumentation, which goes over the theory and principles involved in different aspects of medical testing. I'm also, so this is a graduate level class. In the undergraduate level, I'm introducing a new course to the department, which is on biosensors and diagnostics.
Well, that's great. Thank you. So for all of our guests that have joined us, again, congratulations on your admission. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk all about biomedical engineering. I'm going to start the conversation off and lead Dr. Chung and Dr. Mousavi through a couple different topics that I'm sure that are relevant to all of you. And then toward the end of the session, I'll let you know when I'll open up the chat and we will take questions from the audience. So be thinking about your questions now, but please hold those questions for the time being. To get us started, I think what is really interesting is that both of you brought up your efforts related to COVID-19, and there are a number of efforts university-wide that are going on to try to assist with COVID-19. Can we spend some time, each of you, talking about what the work is that you're doing related to COVID-19 and where you kind of see this leading?
Yeah, so I mean, we're just getting started and kind of at the idea development phase, but because we can make these nanoparticles that can bind to specific markers, we're trying to, you know, develop a nanoparticle that can bind to the virus or an infected cell and then deliver therapeutics to, you know, ultimately stop viral replication. So right now it's at the developmental phase, idea developmental phase, but we're getting a proposal together, a grant, which ultimately, a grant is something that you apply for as a researcher, and then if you are awarded a grant, then you can utilize those funds to do the research that you propose. So we are developing that proposal, and then we'll see if it allows us to conduct the research.
Thank you.
Yeah, so on my end, one of the ideas for controlling an epidemic of this scale is to actually being able to identify who's affected, who's infected, and we had some issues with testing to start with. Right now, it seems like we're getting up to speed. If you go to a hospital, you'll be able to get tested, but that's just limited for a hospital or like an equipped lab. So what if, you know, you're a small business, or what if you just want to sort of get back to the normal activities, but you want to know, am I infected? So my research, so what we're starting is to look at really simple platforms that could be used for at-home testing, but like basically like at the point of care without the need to, you know, spend thousands of dollars on, you know, basically a lab grade equipment. So my lab does a lot of electrochemical detection platforms. So basically we use voltage or current or electricity to manipulate or create some sort of like interaction with materials and then get information from it that way. So so something that we're also, again, it's just new, so we're all trying to contribute in terms of research ideas and try to help out with the situation. But so we're working with electrochemical platforms. One of the cool things about electrochemistry is that you can use your smartphone. So most of us already own a smartphone, which can be used for getting information. So like you send all these different sort of like pulses, voltage or current, and get some sort of interaction with material. So you can use your smartphone for a detection. So that sort of increases the accessibility of testing. So this is basically looking at simple approaches for getting information with already existing devices that you have. So you just need to like provide the chip. So again, this is also like most of the research work on COVID-19 is on the sort of idea development stage and like creating first prototypes. But you know, as researchers, this is an area that we're all interested in and want to contribute and improve the situation for everyone.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that information, especially in this developmental stage, this nascent stage that it's at. And I thought that was relevant to start with, but let's take a couple steps back. Let's talk about each of you and your individual backgrounds. You know, sometimes I like our faculty to share a little bit about where they came from and where they went for undergraduate years, what their academic kind of path has been and how they found themselves at USC, especially because those are decisions that you made, and these are students that are starting to make those decisions. So how can you share? Dr. Mousavi, would you like to start us off?
For sure. So I did my undergrad at Sharif University of Technology, and for PhD I joined University of Minnesota. So it was one of the leading institutes for basically electrochemical platforms for detection, materials. So I was when I actually was looking at, so right after undergrad, you apply for graduate programs. You're interested in exploring career opportunities. So I looked at ranking and then like basically what institute would offer all different facilities and basically faculty members that I would be interested in. So I did not consider weather so much, and I can say that years spent in Minnesota did definitely influence my decision for joining USC.
Because now you're always going to think about weather after spending that time at University of Minnesota, right?
Yeah, so it was like, well, great institute, but it's nice to have a little bit of a warmer weather. So from there, so for my PhD studies, I worked on looking at new materials, fluorocarbons. So I'll explain what a fluorocarbon is in a minute. And I also was looking at basically making devices for energy storage. So if we think of renewable energy and how do we actually, one part is harvesting, but it's also like storage of energy. So to explain a little bit about what a fluorocarbon is, if you've ever like cooked using Teflon pans, so that's the material that has lots of fluorine atoms in its structure. And if you increase the content of fluorine, you get materials that are not miscible with basically water or like living beings. So more like fat, I would say. So give you a more common example of it. So we're exploring how to use fluorocarbons for developing innovative sensors to push selectivity for drugs. So for my postdoc, so right after you get your PhD or doctorate studies, there's another step. Usually it's called a postdoctoral training. So a postdoctoral training is like you're not like on your own completely, but you're still doing research. So I joined Harvard University for my postdoctoral training. I spent about 3 years there developing diagnostics, accessible diagnostics for everyone. So the idea there was to use really ubiquitous materials. So we actually used paper. So the paper that you write on. So we use paper to create different channels. So you can actually use paper for manipulating fluids. So if you've ever gotten a drop of coffee on your books, or like the writing, the paper that you write on, you see that it sort of starts propagating everywhere. So that we call wicking. And you can use that for manipulating fluids. So your entire lab and experiment can be done in a piece of paper or layers of paper, and paper is so affordable that it's just going to drop the cost of the medical testing. So after that, I wanted to have my own lab and play with my own ideas and then see like how far we can push. So one of my bigger motives is to be able to create really accessible medical testing. So it's like if you can't measure it, you can't manage it kind of situation, and make sure that there's all sort of inflation in cost of healthcare in the US. There are many issues like all over the world in terms of accessibility of testing, which affects health of many people. So that's what I'm basically aspiring to do. In terms of USC, it's actually a great institute. It's well positioned, close to many other leading institutes. There are tons of resources on campus. If you've ever, I'm not sure if you guys have visited the campus. The campus is beautiful. And we have really, I would say, outstanding faculty at USC, which creates a unique environment for whatever it is that you're basically setting yourself up to do. At the same time, it's a very cozy environment. So undergrads, I've worked with I've been at USC for about a year, but I worked with about 10 undergraduate students so far, and they're all super, super talented, and I'm very excited to get involved in things. But the environment at the same time that is very academic and I would say very basically like at a high level, it's quite fun at the same time. So you see students are having a good time, they're learning, but it's not like, oh, everyone's super stressed and, like working towards, so it's sort of like a perfect place for having a good life, but also getting excellent academic education and whatever it is that you're interested in terms of like more towards industry, or if you want to go for academic direction, I think USC has the resources to help you. So
thank you.
Yeah, that was a little bit long.
That was great. Thank you very much. Dr. Chung.
So the question was just like my education
background. Yeah, where'd you start with? Where'd you come from? How'd you get you through your educational path, and how'd you find yourself at USC?
Yeah, so I actually went to an international school for high school, and so I was living in Korea, and I was a boarding student. And so at international schools, and I don't know if some of you are, joining us internationally, but I most folks will go to the US typically to go to college. And I chose to go to liberal arts school, Scripps. It's part of the Claremont colleges, a little bit not too far from here, about an hour or so from USC. And at Scripps, at a liberal arts college, which are really great schools for education, but they don't have graduate programs. And so it's kind of a smaller place. Um, and so one of the things that I didn't get to really experience was engineering. Because they were more focused on sort of like the sciences, the pure sciences. Like you could be a chemistry major, or a biology major, or a physics major, but at least at Scripps there was no engineering, although you could do that at Harvey Mudd or one of the other schools. But having said that, for my PhD, I went to Northwestern, and I knew as I was doing research at at the undergraduate level, that I wanted to do something closer to human health and disease. And my college education, it was good for doing and understanding fundamental research, but it was on organisms like yeast, or other like unicellular organisms. And so I did have a gap year where I actually did research at USC regarding Alzheimer's disease, and that really kind of motivated me, and it kind of clarified to me that I wanted to go into more human-related research. And so I went to Northwestern and I pursued my PhD in biomedical engineering. And there I developed these biodegradable scaffolds for tissue engineering for bone and ACL regeneration. And so we would put stem cells that are from your bones, actually, that can differentiate into bone cells or ligament cells. And I made this sort of synthetic system that can degrade over time. Um, so that's what I did for my PhD. And then, so I'm doing nanomedicine now. So how did I go into the nano side of things? Well, I went to Northwestern and I did these sort of bigger materials, but I always knew I wanted to go to the nanoscale so I can really design materials on that scale, which will then give information to your cells and just other molecular cues. Um, and so then I went to the University of Chicago for my postdoctoral training. And so Maral was saying how you have this sort of in-between phase and additional training. You can kind of think about it as like being a resident if you're an MD doctor before you become like an attending physician. So that's similar. I did my 4 years there, and then I came to USC. And how I made the decision for USC, I was considering other schools because I'm on the job market, but I actually didn't consider weather. That was actually not a problem for me. Chicago, as cold as it is, I really enjoy Chicago, but overall USC had kind of everything that I needed. Had the resources, the facilities for me to do the research. So I do animal research as well as material and chemistry. So it kind of had that whole scale. It has a medical school, which was kind of like one of the major things that I needed for my research programs to be able to collaborate with other clinicians. So I have clinical collaborators on all of our projects, and we're going to be going into large animal models and thinking about FDA. And so that really requires an environment that can foster that kind of relationship, and it needs to have that kind of bandwidth. And so, and at the same time, it had, the student population that I would want. They're excellent for research. I have always undergrads that I'm hosting in the group. Some have been with me for the entire time that I've been at USC, and they're about to graduate. And yeah, so we have postdocs in the group, as well as graduate students, master students, undergrads, and even high school students. So USC kind of has different programs to actually encourage undergraduate research. So that's another really big plus, is that there are these fellowships or awards, these funding mechanisms that pay you to do research in a lab of your choosing. And so I think that's also really nice. I think that's actually just a nice perk overall in private schools. I think they have these different mechanisms that can allow to kind of heighten or expand your college education in addition to just the academics.
Great, thank you so much. So this is a seemingly simple question, but it is complex in its nature. Given that these students have just been admitted to biomedical engineering, typically from a high school perspective, the extent of that background is, I took biology classes, I like math and science, I'm thinking about biomedical engineering. So what is biomedical engineering? I mean, like I said, seemingly simple question, but it's a complex answer because it is such an interdisciplinary and kind of broadly applied major. Can we shed some light or help our students understand biomedical engineering?
Yeah, I think ultimately, whenever you have the word engineering, it's always something that you're going to apply. So it's using sort of biological tools and concepts and medical tools and concepts. And oftentimes, you're probably going to pull concepts from pharmacy, material science, chemical engineering, and other chemistry, physics. Um, and ultimately, all those tools will then be used for an application, a medical application typically. So that's kind of how I see biomedical engineering.
Dr. Mousavi, any other thoughts there?
Yeah, so I actually 100% agree with the description that Eun Ji provided. It's basically using knowledge and science that we have, or coming up with new models for contributing towards health. So it's basically at the interface of, so biomedical engineering is at the interface of basically medicine and science. So how do we basically create systems and devices and models to study a phenomenon, or so in a way to help basically physicians to study a phenomenon, or to create tools that will assist patients. So it's basically bridging science and medicine in a way.
Thank you. And given that there are so many life science-based majors or disciplines in a university setting, I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of, obviously biology and chemistry, but biochemistry and neuroscience and cognitive biology and cognitive neuroscience, and all these different elements of sciences. What is the key distinction between a biomedical engineering program at USC versus maybe another program that is more on that science realm?
So to me, like there I would say a big distinction between engineering and science. So I actually my own undergraduate degree was in science. So I studied chemistry for my undergraduate degree. But so the key distinction is utility and use, and how would you basically use the information that you have towards creating something and solving a problem. So it's basically making things come into life, versus in a more science in science majors, say biochemistry, you're studying something for the sake of studying it. So you're not really concerned with, is it applicable? So you could be studying something that you don't know if it's going to be applicable anywhere. It's just for the sake of knowledge. But when you interface engineering, it's to create something useful, to find out what the problems are, to be able to articulate what is it that we need to come up with, or what is it that needs to be addressed. And then you use the tools that you have, so in the science and also on the engineering side, to solve a problem. So if you're a person who is more like to make things, and then to sort of like be on the translational side of things, engineering would be a better choice. But if you're like, I'm not really concerned with that, I really like to think, get my cup of coffee, look at the sunset, and then think about the universe and what's going on and whatnot. So I would say that that's more towards science. What's unique about biomedical engineering specifically is it's a very rigorous uh, curriculum in a way, because you have to know all the basic sciences. So you have to know chemistry, you have to know biology, you have to know like even biochemistry, but you also need to know math and programming and engineering tools. So that's the price you pay to be able to communicate to both, physicians and doctors and patients, and use all the existing tools. So what's unique about biomedical engineering specifically is you have to learn everything, but it's again towards application in my viewpoint.
That's great. Thank you. That really helps. How can we help our students understand the approach to the undergraduate curriculum for biomedical engineering and how that may differ from other types of programs that, to which they've been admitted? Can we walk? Go ahead.
What do you mean specifically? Just what does the curriculum look like?
Yeah, what does the curriculum look like? Yeah, that's an easier
Mhm.
way of putting it. I'm just being way too wordy today.
So, I mean, if you look at our website, we have different tracks, right? And then they tell, it kind of slots you into the requirements and what would make sense in terms of electives for these different tracks. So I see that most of our undergraduate do that's a general BME track, which is just BME, and then there's like a biomedical engineering with a molecular cellular track, and then there's a biomedical engineering degree with a mechanical track as well as an electrical track, electrical engineering. So, you know, going back to, I guess, Maral's point is that you're a jack of all trades. If you wanted to go a little bit deeper in one direction, for instance, cellular molecular is where I fit in terms of the research areas in our department. So we're going into cells and tissues and animals, versus there could be someone else that's in the more electrical. Maybe they're using electrical devices, they're doing neural electrical stimulation, and it becomes a bit more computational at times. So you could get a little bit more of a deeper understanding by choosing these tracks. Having said that, I think the majority of the undergrads do choose just the general BME. And so, yeah, you'll have these requirements, including, chemistry, physics, math, whatever. I think that might maybe differ from, let's say, a molecular biology degree. Maybe you don't need additional math after a certain point, or maybe in those particular degrees, so go deeper into the molecular biology, courses, versus we'll keep it as what we think you might need, and then you'll also understand some of these other disciplines as well. Um, so I think that might be a difference in the different curriculum.
I think that's a great overview. Thank you so much. I think something that I would want to extend or share on top of that is that those disciplines are nothing you need to worry about right now. There's nothing that you need to understand specifically on whether you're on the right one. Or the program all starts the same way with an introduction to biomedical engineering. And the way that Dr. Chung explained those different areas, that's a decision that you'll make through somewhat of an experiential process as you kind of go through courses and understand what is attractive to you and what you find interesting. And you never know where that's going to lead you until you actually get into the coursework. So recognize it's not a decision you need to make now. It's something you'll do as you start being exposed to more courses and immersed in more of the curriculum. So don't worry about having all the answers right now. It's not anything that you need to worry about. What is something that either of you are most excited about in the field of biomedical engineering, of where we are right now, where this field is going, what you see on the horizon for it?
Yeah, so
Come up with all the tough questions today. It's also hard to not think about COVID-19 right now.
I'm like,
That's the only thing that's in my head when I asked that question. I realized I probably should have said, we've already talked about that in the beginning, but other things you were on track for looking at before we all got sent home. Maybe that's a different way to phrase the question.
So what I want to say is, I mean, again, biomedical engineering has so many different branches, and it's impossible to answer this question for all of these fields inclusive,
Sure.
right? I mean, we are at a point that the sciences have advanced so much, and we're capable to improve human health. What I want to say is for my own area, which is medical devices, is what's exciting to me is to find out problems that need to be solved. And from my experience, there are a lot of existing problems that there is a solution for it. It's just somewhere else in a different area, in a different field, and it's just that these two, basically where the problem is and where the solution is, there is no bridge between them. So there's nobody that knows the knowledge and the science and also is aware of the problem. So what's really exciting to me is to actually be observant and like get out of my own comfort zone, go to different fields and areas, and talk to physicians and clinicians and other people in different fields, and figure out what it is that's needed, especially in the area of medical testing and in general measurement and diagnostics for my end. And then they come up with like creative solutions using existing pieces of science, and then combining it with a little bit of engineering tools to actually have a simpler approach to address those problems. So I think what's coming up in biomedical engineering specifically is to the recognition of half of the battle is actually finding out where the issues and the problems lie, and then being knowledgeable enough that you'd be able to bridge those gaps. Yeah, but there's so many exciting things happening in the field of biomedical engineering, so it's hard to answer.
Sure.
Answer for all. Yeah.
Absolutely, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, there in terms of research, you could go in so many ways, right? We have a lot of like wearable technology that's happening. I think that's become a huge thing in recent years. I think that's more aligned with Maral. On sort of the single cell analysis, we can now look at individual cells. Let's say you have a tumor and there are individual cells that broke off and are circulating in your blood and are trying to metastasize somewhere else. We are now able to take a single cell and look at its different RNA and proteins and see the differences between that one cell and something else. I think that's really incredible. And you get these big libraries and you can kind of figure out different signals and how different proteins work with one another. Yeah, I mean, having said there are things like microRNA, there are RNAs that don't become proteins, but they are just RNAs. They have different functions, and we're learning about that. I think even just, the coronavirus thing, I think this is just a complete example of, I was never a virus person, a virologist in any way, but there was this need, and we're following that need. And it's exciting for me because I can always do the learning. And I think that's what's really great is you're constantly learning, right? Especially when you're doing research, they're all new things. You're trying to piece it together the way that Maral just said. On the other end, I think educating my undergrad, my grad students is a lot of fun. Every year, it's like, in some ways, it's like Groundhog's Day because I teach the same class, but the students are all new and they all bring something else to the table. And it's really nice to see their growth over the years. That's always exciting to me every year. It's like the first day of school every year for me. I still get butterflies, right? Still, like you might not think so, but I think all professors, no matter how many times they've teach the same class, it's still like, oh wow, this is totally new again. And then I can relate that to my high school like outreach efforts too. So it's really nice to see young faces do new things, and even now as I'm writing recommendation letters to my undergrads that are trying to go to medical school or go to industry or whatever, it just great to think about the new things that they brought to the table in the research and at school, and how they've grown over the years. One undergrad that's been with me, he led a total research project on his own. He wrote the manuscript. He's the first author he's a published author on like 4 or 5 manuscripts, but he's a leading author, a leading researcher on one of the projects, which I think is really exciting to see. Yeah, that mentoring part is always new, and there's always different challenges. It always looks different, but I think that's also really exciting. And also on the teaching side, because things are always changing, especially in a place like nanomedicine, I'm always slotting in new material as well. And so I'm always learning through my classes because the curriculum is always tweaked here and there because of the new developments. So I guess that's kind of, going full circle. Research and education, it's always just, it's very much closely tied to one another.
Thank you very much. So for all of you out in the audience, with your questions, go ahead and shoot them out. Put them into the chat. I'm going to ask one quick question for our faculty here while we wait for those questions to appear, and then I will moderate those questions. Sometimes students have similar questions, so I'll combine them. But for our students, they're all about to start college somewhere, and we hope with us. What advice do you have for them as they go about starting their undergraduate career?
So I've got, I would say, three main points that I wanna mention. Is the first thing is, cultivate curiosity. I mean, the reason you come to university and the college is to answer some questions and think about things that you want to learn more on. Okay, so it's not about like getting A's and it's great that you have 4.0 GPA. That's fantastic, but you're not there for that. You're there to learn. So you want to sort of like be curious about things because university has so many resources. My second advice is more on logistics. So you come from high school, and when you guys are the best because like you've been able to succeed in all levels and you've been on the top of your class. When you come to college, everyone's like that. So I mean, relying on like being the best and then being the top of your class, that's just not gonna cut it in the university. So there's just so many. So you're sort of thrown into this world of science and different tools, and it might feel overwhelming at the beginning, and it's always going to be overwhelming in science. You're always facing things that you've no idea what they are, and it's never going to stop. So no matter how high you go, you could be a Nobel laureate and you still be like, oh, I have no idea about all these things. So my second advice is cultivate stupidity. Is just to feel comfortable, and just be shameless. So you go into things, you ask questions, So it's more like ask a stupid question or stay stupid. So I see that's the major issue for like a large portion of undergraduate students, that they come in and they feel a little bit overwhelmed on what's going on, and oh my god, I have no idea. And the third point is balance, I think, for life. So you don't want to burn yourself out. So you want to sort of like stay healthy, dedicate enough time to, get eating healthy, exercising, and then basically like staying sane and, basically the best of yourself to be able to enjoy like learning more about science. I mean, that's just really fun to get exposed to all these different areas. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I have to add to that, I think Maral did an excellent job in breaking it down. I think is, there are resources at colleges. Just in general, you'll be amazed. I mean, it's, like even just extracurricular activities and athletics, or cultural activities. I don't know, museum based, hiking based, whatever, anything that you can think of, religion, anything. It's there, and it's amazing how much you can develop yourself in addition to academics. And even in academics, there are resources beyond just the classroom, right? There's just so much. It's such a rich place. So when you are at school, in college, I would just make the most of it. Really put yourself out there, and ask questions, right? Because a lot of the times you don't know unless you ask. Um, and you only know what you know. So um, there are a lot of resources that are available that you might not be aware of. So I would always just be connecting with people and just trying to make the most of your time, whatever that it means to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. This question is asked in different ways, so I'm just going to phrase it this way, and then I'll fill in the back end of it. Can each of you talk about the collaboration between other academic units? Obviously, research is not done in a silo, so this opportunity to work with the Keck School of Medicine or maybe other types of biology or science departments. Can we talk about examples you may have related to collaboration outside of engineering or even within engineering disciplines?
Yeah, So I think one question was about like CAC and BME students specifically. So I'll address that after I kind of give you a whole picture. But all of our projects, we have projects on prostate cancer, atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, as well as a chronic kidney disease, and immunotherapies. And all of these have a clinical collaborator and their research group that we closely collaborate with. So they have some part of the project that they are kind of leading, even under our bigger project umbrella. Even though we might be the main drivers, there is a specific expertise that they have that they contribute to our overall goals. And so through that, there are, typically their PhD students and the research scientists do the driving of the daily research, but then the undergrads, at least in my group, we make sure that they come in 3 to 4 hours at a time, about 3 or 4 times a week, based on their schedule, so that they can make a meaningful contribution. Because oftentimes in research, there'll be like this period of just kind of waiting. You do one thing, you wait, and then an hour and a half later, you get to do something else. And so to kind of have that continuity, we kind of made a schedule that would work best. And we work with our undergrads to make sure that their schedule and classes can, we can work with their schedules. And so they contribute in that way. And sometimes they'll be looped into collaborative meetings with our CAC collaborators. And over the summer, as well, they'll do research and might make a little bit. They might have different hours because they don't have classes, but that's typically how our research is designed. Is we have collaborators at CAC or other. We have like a collaborator at Cedars-Sinai as well, and then we kind of do our individual strengths and then come together and discuss. And the undergrads will be looped in.
Great, thank you. Maral, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think Eun Ji covered it beautifully. So yeah, we all, especially BME specifically, is an interdisciplinary field because you need to access patients and samples, and most of the projects are done in an interdisciplinary way, and there is close relationship between Viterbi School of Engineering and Keck School of Medicine. So I personally have collaborators in Keck, and also I work with collaborators in Oslo School of Dentistry. And we have collaborators in basically like basic sciences, chemistry and biology, and most problems are really complex. So you need to collect a team of experts, and everyone is looking at one aspect of the work. And the beauty of these sort of interdisciplinary projects is it gives the students a taste of like different areas. So as undergrads, you'd be involved in you can choose to be involved in research, and working in these types of projects will give you idea of what it means to be a biologist, what it means to be a physician, and whatnot.
Great, thank you. There's another question here about the curriculum from Aisha, and it's about different tracks. And will they have different projects or have different classes? And yeah, there are some differences in the classes, and I'd encourage you to take a look at the curriculum. We mailed you the undergraduate handbook, which has each of the 4-year course plans for the 4 different biomedical engineering tracks. You can see the specific differences in the coursework there to see how that lays out. Again, it all starts basically the same, so you don't need to worry about making that decision now, but you can start to see how it focuses. Very simply, biomedical with molecular cellular emphasis is going to have more of the life sciences involved, and it's going to go down to the cellular level. Biomedical with an electrical emphasis is going to blend in electrical engineering coursework to help you kind of combo those 2 programs toward health-related solutions that involve kind of an electrical engineering or circuitry aspect to it. And then biomedical mechanical is going to involve mechanical engineering coursework into that, so you can actually be working on the physical structures. And so it depends on where you want to focus on. But there is a lot of overlap. At its core, it's a biomedical engineering degree, which means that there are similar coursework. So you can take a look at that and see how that lines up. What do you all believe? Jefferson asked this question. What is it about USC's culture and community that enhance the development of BME students?
So when you say development, is it like personal growth? Is that what?
I think it's a good way to take it.
Okay.
In other words, is Jefferson going to be super successful?
I mean, yeah.
I see you, Jefferson, in the hoodie. I think you're going to kill it, buddy. You're going to be good. But that's just you, man. That has nothing to do with USC. But I think it's going to be even better here, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think USC has everything to offer in terms of, building, let's say, your resume, your academics, um, finding balance, um, ultimately navigating college and figuring out what's important to you, what do you want to do in the next step. And I think it's at that point, you know, it's also up to the undergrad to kind of reach out, right, for those resources that are available. So I think overall, we have different student groups, different also eh, for I know there's different like cultural groups as well. The one that I'm most familiar with is like women in science and engineering. There are equivalent programs like that, and they have resources in terms of traveling to conferences or having meetups, having faculty to student interactions. So I think it's just about, participating. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me phrase it a slightly different way, Dr. Chung, because you mentioned earlier your students are a good number of students that you've been with since you started at USC are about to graduate. Where
Yeah.
do you see them going, these seniors that are on their way out?
Yeah. So, and I see there's one about internships as well,
Mhm.
but they go, I mean, one went to Abbott last year, and so another one's going to Medtronic, and they both had internships in the summer before they actually got the offer. And then others, one went to the University of Oxford to do a master's. Another one went to a healthcare consulting firm. And I have a couple that one went to dental school, and I have a couple that went to medical school or that are applying to go to medical school. So again, it's just like what they envision their life, what their goals are. And then they've been and a lot of them have been pretty clear from the beginning. Like, not many have said, "I'm going to industry," and then flip to go to medical school. It seems like somewhere along the road, they're able to say, yes, I think this is more the right path for me. And then I've seen a lot of success stories. I think that also is attributing to like our alumni base is really strong. And I know alumni come to campus, they do recruiting, and also the recruitment fairs are huge. It's like I don't know where everybody comes from, but on those days, it's just like there are like rows and rows of those umbrella-filled tables, and it's just like, and there's like a whole line of everyone kind of sweating because it's hot, and but they're in their black suits, know.
We had one
So
day 1 year where it rained and it was weird, and that was 1 year.
really,
Yes, yeah, not a good year.
but and I feel like that happens a couple times a year. Like I feel like there's one in the fall-ish, and there's
We have an
right.
engineering career fair in the fall. We have an engineering career fair in the spring, and then we do a number of different networking opportunities, individual events with companies, and then we also work very closely with the Associated Students of Biomedical Engineering because there are a lot of smaller firms that don't have that outreach and recruitment budget that the larger companies like Abbott or Medtronic may have, and so maybe they're a smaller startup. And we work with ASBME, and we held a corporate luncheon every semester where a recruiter or maybe one of the executives from the corporation come have lunch with students of biomedical engineering just to get to know them and also review resumes. So there's a lot of strong opportunities for internships and jobs, and that's all centrally coordinated through our Engineering Career Connections office, specific career services for engineering students in addition to what the university does overall.
And also, I think honestly, because you guys are going to be first years, there's a similar like fair for extracurriculars. There's that one day
Yes.
in the fall where there's like umbrellas filled with other students that are leading these curricular
Yeah.
groups, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, the involvement fair, one in the fall, one in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an involvement fair. It's similar. There's kind of the same thing happens with that as well. So there's a university involvement fair, and then there's a Viterbi involvement fair. So there's two opportunities to engage, both in the fall and the spring, and that's where a lot of this engagement starts. As a first-year student, you start to take classes, you get to know students in your residence halls, you start to get to know your faculty, and then your involvement in student organizations, whether they be professional, like the Associated Students of Biomedical Engineering, or maybe you want to join like a design team, or maybe you want to get involved in entrepreneurial efforts. All of them are there for you to start joining, and that's always the hard part in your first year. how much do you join? What's too little? What's too much? And you start to define where your limits are, and you only know where those limits are until you really mess up. And so that's one of the first things when you in your first year is finding those limits, but not going a little bit too far, but also not being too conservative as well. So we kind of handled a couple different questions there as well. How does someone get involved in research? I think my best advice, and I'll let our faculty jump in as well, is as you start taking classes, first get your footing. Start to get a sense of what this discipline's about, because research is an advanced element of that discipline. But engaging with faculty, getting to know your faculty, and asking your faculty. How would you all agree on that, or other thoughts?
So what I want to say, so I'll go over a few different methods by which I've actually got involved with undergraduate students that are currently in my group. So we have a we have a undergraduate student group, ASBME, and they do a phenomenal job of hosting different events. So one of the events they host is that they basically have, I think it's like a couple of times per semester or something like that, where they bring in faculty. So it would be 3 to 4 faculty. So we'll give, so it's a dinner event. We'll give a research presentation, telling like what are the questions that we're asking in our research, and if we're interested in having students. And then we'll basically there are different tables, and faculty set up tables with students. So I've had a lot of students that approached me after I went to that event. They asked me if they could come and work in my lab. So we met afterwards, and then they decided, that they want to continue. So another method that generally works is you have an advisor. I think Chris Knoll is the undergraduate advisor. So you'll be meeting with him, and then he's gonna like give you advice in terms of like which courses to take and what to do. And he's a good person to ask about research opportunities. So I had a couple of students coming to me using basically a recommendation from Chris Knoll, and we met, and it happened to be a great fit. So another method is generally you go to talks. So there are these seminars, and everybody gets these emails. So this could be seminars from external speakers, but a lot of times our own faculty will speak. So if you're not shy, you can just hang in there. When the talk is finished, you can go over and talk to the speaker and introduce yourself and say, hey, I really like what you're doing. What are your suggestions on getting involved more in this area of research? In addition to that, there are certain venues for fellowship opportunities for students, specifically for freshmen. I know there's the Provost Fellowship, and if there are other opportunities, you'd be notified of that. And to actually collect students, that way we post a brief abstract of the projects that we're working on. So I had a couple abstracts out, and I have about, I would say, 4 freshman students in my group right now, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I was really surprised by how qualified they were, and they have all these creative ideas. So there are so many different ways for you to get exposed to the research area of faculty and approaching them. So if you feel like I don't want to cold call anybody, you can approach Chris through the recommendation from an advisor. You could just go up and talk to that person, or I've also received really cold call emails in terms of, hey, we've seen your website, can we come and talk to you? And you'd be surprised how interested faculty are to talk to students. So it's generally we're really excited to meet with undergrads. They're really fun and creative, and so that was another way that I got involved with undergraduate students. So many different opportunities for you to get involved in research, and a lot of funding opportunities for you to get paid while you're doing research over the summer or over the semester as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the ones you mentioned from the provost level down, university funding resources. Sometimes, in some cases, faculty have funding for you, but that's usually as you grow in the lab. But also, the dean is actually just launching. We've already done some support for undergraduates going into research. Some of our admitted students have been granted research grants already, a small percentage of them through the admission process. But now we're going to be doubling down on undergraduate research funding starting this year. So all first-year students will be eligible to apply. If they don't have that funding, they can apply again coming December to get paid as early as their incoming spring semester. So we're really focused on supporting students to get into those labs and help out. I want to ask one last question and then we'll say goodbye. I love the opportunity to talk to faculty in one department because I get to ask this question. Why is biomedical engineering the best engineering discipline? Remember, there's no other engineering faculty here, so you can just go at it.
Oh my goodness, really? Um, let's see, why is it the best? You know, I mean, for me personally, I think you really cannot, it's for human health, obviously. That's the bigger purpose of biomedical engineering is utilizing biology and, for us, we use material science concepts, whatever it takes, pharmacy concepts, um, because we're developing like drug devices with these nanoparticles. But ultimately, it's to help a patient um, that doesn't have currently a solution, right? And so I think there's always a higher purpose behind biomedical engineering. And there's always a goal, and it's very goal driven. And so I really resonate with that, and probably a lot of you all do as well, choosing biomedical engineering already. And so it's always very motivating, and it doesn't, even under circumstances like these, I'm still keeping it going. I'm still motivated, right, to not only learn new things that keep popping up, but also there's this higher goal of trying to help someone. And as I mentioned, our goal in our research is to go through the FDA pipeline and really utilize our research for somebody. That's what we want to do. Um, and so it's just like a very fulfilling major field, life purpose. Yeah.
I 100% agree with what Unji said. What I want to add to that is if you're not sure like what kind of engineering you like to do, biomedical engineering is a great choice because you'd be introduced to all the different areas of engineering. So you'd have to know a little bit of mechanical engineering, you'd have to know electrical engineering, you have to know chemical engineering. So you'd be basically be placed in a good footing in terms of like getting knowledge on all these different areas of engineering and science as well. But it also gives you so much flexibility down the road. So if you decide that you want to go to math school, well, BME is a great choice because you're already like placed in the right direction for becoming a great physician or a clinician. But say you decide that you want to focus on a specific area of engineering, say mechanical or electrical, you already have a very good background knowledge on that area for you to be able to focus on an area that you find more interesting. So I would say it's a good starting point. Whatever if you're unsure, and I mean you really don't know much when you're just coming out of high school. You haven't had enough exposure to different areas, so it's a great thing to start with to give yourself flexibility down the road and have a very solid training that would allow you to pivot in different directions as you see fit.
I want to add one more thing. That's a really great point. I do want to say that because biomedical engineering is ultimately problem solving, and you have to use your mind in more than one way in terms of engineering disciplines that kind of can be very far ends of the spectrum. Some folks in biomedical engineering have just straight went into like a finance position after college because they're just using that problem solving knack that they've been trained to do over the course of the 4 years, and they can take that skill pretty much anywhere. And so in addition to going deeper into an engineering discipline that you've been exposed to, you can actually take that problem solving skill to different fields entirely as well.
Well, that couldn't have been a better way to end the talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Chung, Dr. Mousavi, for joining us and helping to connect to our incoming biomedical engineering students. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I really appreciate you playing along. And to all of our students that joined us, again, congratulations on your admission. I know you have an incredibly tough choice to make as you go about this. You have to make that decision by May 1st. That's the National Candidates Reply deadline. If you have not attended our Viterbi keynote, where we talk a little bit more about Viterbi undergraduate experiences and support services for students, make sure you do so. We run those on Tuesdays. The next one is this coming Tuesday, and then the one after that. There are only 2 left. You can sign up at your admission portal, admission.usc.edu/status. If you've decided to join us, you can get your deposit in at that exact same spot. And I hope that we're going to see a good number of you on campus very soon, including our faculty. Hopefully we'll see each other again very, very soon. But from all of our homes and to all of your homes, thank you so much for joining us, and fight on.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.
Bye-bye.